Um, yeah, he needs to correct the spelling. The spelling, his name is misspelled. It's Sylvester with an S. Sylvester, not Sylverter. And entrepreneur is misspelled. I'm a professor. You know, I read bad writing all day long.
Sylvester.
Sylvester. Sylvester. Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. An entrepreneur, E-N, not M, E-N-T-R-E. There you go. Okay. Can I get my close up so I can see how wonderful my hair looks? My hair. It's my hair. Now how I'm looking? Am I lopsided? No. Okay.
Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Mic check. Mic check. It's all right?
Okay. Right there? Okay.
Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Mic check.
Okay, we ready. Oh, it's been months since I've been in here. It's so boring. And remember, it's all about me. Just look at me and pay attention.
I need to look at you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're picking up your angle just the way it's supposed to be. So the backdrop. Welcome to Delta Renaissance. I'm your host, C.Sade Turnipseed, and I have one of my most favorite people in the whole wide world as a guest tonight. He is the Honorable Mayor of Baptist Town, Mississippi, and I'm just happy to have him here in the studio with me tonight. My brother, Sylvester Hoover. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks.
It's been a couple of years since you sat in this chair.
It has been a while. I certainly appreciate you inviting me to
your
show.
Yeah.
To talk a little bit about what I'm doing here.
Because what you've been doing ever since you've probably been grown anyway.
It's been a while.
Is the blues and the cultural heritage and the tours and the entrepreneurial things, all about, promoting the Delta and the culture of the Delta. So we're going to take a minute and just really get into that. Okay?
Well, that's what I'm about.
Yeah.
I'm about promoting the Delta, the blues music, the history of the Delta, the culture. Well, I'm really pretty much, I'm an entrepreneur. And I talk a lot about the Mississippi Delta. I own a convenience store in Baptist Town, the store that Robert Johnson would go in to buy his Prince Albert tobacco. I got a museum in Baptist Town with the history of African America, where they lived from 1900 all the way up to 1965.
And so just to be clear, where exactly is Baptist Town?
Baptist Town across the track. It's on the east side of Greenwood. And it's the oldest African American neighborhood in Greenwood. That Baptist Town was developed in 1871, and it was developed for field hands to live in Baptist Town and work in the cotton field.
The sharecroppers,
and all those people would live in Baptist Town.
Okay.
And Baptist Town got a lot of history, heritage, and culture wrapped up in it. And we have people from all over the world come to see Baptist Town because of the history and the heritage and the culture that it has. And this is the home of Robert Johnson. The blues, the king of the Mississippi Delta blues, Robert Johnson. Honey Boy Edward lived there. Morgan Freeman lived in Baptisttown. We had a lot of people lived in Baptisttown because that was the only place that you could live if you was an African American up until the 50s and 60s.
Even Brandy.
Even Brandy lived in Baptisttown. She spent time in Baptisttown.
Yeah.
We had a lot of famous people that came through Baptisttown, and I just want to talk about Baptisttown and give the history of Baptisttown and the history of the Mississippi Delta because it's a big part of American history. And I tour people and tell them about the history of Baptisttown, the history of the blues music, Mississippi Delta, and Robert Johnson. And on April 30th of this year, we're having a first annual Robert Johnson Blues Festival. And we want to come back where it started at. It started in Baptisttown, so we want to do the festival in Baptisttown to step on the same stomping ground that Robert Johnson and Honey Boy Edward was stomping on. So we just want to come back so we're going to do a documentary as we go. Because it's a lot of history, heritage, and culture over there, and we're going to have the music. So we just want to try to invite people over there to see Baptisttown, to get a feel of Baptisttown, so you can really see, feel, taste, and hear the blues over in Baptisttown, because that place is like no other place in the world. And it just got so much history in it, and we just have so many different peoples come to that place, but because of the history and the heritage and the culture and the blues music that, you know, we just want to showcase it to the world because it's a big part of Greenwood. It brings a lot of tourists into Greenwood. And I had Congressman John Lewis over there last year. We have a lot of people come to Baptisttown. We have people that I never would have met any other way but through Baptisttown. And Baptisttown, I've been there for the last 30 years, and I've been advertising the history and the heritage and the culture of Baptisttown. And now it's kind of catching on. I see people from foreign countries. I see people from all over the world want to come to Baptisttown.
So how did Baptisttown get its name?
Baptisttown got its name because that was the place where everybody used to come in the 1900s to baptize. Even white peoples, black peoples, everybody would come.
Was there a creek there?
There was a creek there. There's a creek right over in Baptisttown.
So in that old traditional way out there in all the white,
yep,
getting baptized.
Yeah, out there in all the white, and they would go get down in the water and get baptized. And they had running water. It was clean water. And that's why everybody would come over there to get baptized. And that's why they named that place Baptisttown. And Baptisttown was so instrumental to black people because that was the only place they could live in Greenwood if you was an African American.
Right.
You couldn't live anywhere else in Greenwood but Baptisttown, and it's surrounded by railroad tracks.
The whole
Baptisttown
is
surrounded by railroad tracks. And if you was an African American, you could not cross the track.
In any direction?
Any direction.
So
until you got to Johnson Street. You get to Carrollton Avenue and Johnson Street, they run together. You get there, you could cross it because Johnson Street was the only place black people could shop.
Well, no, wait a minute. Okay, because see, a lot of people don't understand the history of the South, specifically the Mississippi Delta, and the kind of things that would happen, you know, if they crossed the railroad tracks.
Man, you get in major trouble.
Trouble like what?
I mean, you would get beat up, you could get a year in jail, and you might get lynched for crossing the track. Because Honey Boy Edward, he would always come and give me a show. Every year he would be on this show if he was alive, but he died a few years ago.
And Honey Boy lived to be the oldest blues man alive at the point.
Right.
I think he died at 96 or 97 years old.
Yep, 96, 97 years old. And that was, what, 2013?
Yeah, it was just a couple of years ago.
Just a few years ago when Honey Boy Edward died. And Honey Boy Edward said, when they said Robert Johnson would live in Baptisttown, but he wouldn't go to the cotton field and go to work, because he could make more money playing his blues music than he could picking or chopping cotton.
Right.
Honey Boy said they'd make $1 a day picking or chopping cotton. He said, but on the corner playing blues music, they could make $1.25 a day. So Robert Johnson would much rather hide in the house and not go pick cotton. He would play his music and make his dollar.
Him and Honey Boy do the same thing. That's where Honey Boy got his name from.
Right. I mean, both would do it. I mean, they both would do it.
And then they would just play, you know, for a few hours in the evening, not in all that blazing hot sun. Everybody out there in the fields.
Right.
You know, it was pretty
And see,
Intense.
and Honey
Say the
Boy
least.
said he couldn't walk on the street during daylight hours.
Right.
Said it was the Jim Crow law.
Right.
And Honey Boy couldn't walk on the street during daylight hours.
They would get arrested for vagrancy.
Right, they would get arrested for vagrancy. They would get a year in jail for just walking the street.
Yeah.
For just on the street, because if you was black, you had to be in somebody's cotton field working.
And then I'll go to Parchment and then work on a cotton field there.
Right. I mean, that's the way it worked
Yeah.
back in those days.
So that's what happened when you crossed the railroad
And
tracks.
see, and really, that's what kind of made the blues.
Oh, yeah.
I
It's
mean,
evoked. What I like to use the word is evoked the blues. It just kind of came out of our spirit just as a soothing, healing sound to get through the day. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to keep talking about these blues.
Okay.
Mississippi Delta blues. And with Sylvester Hoover. Y'all come on back. Yeah. Welcome back. I'm in the studio with my friend, my brother, my colleague, Sylvester Hoover. And, you know, because now you were one of the original board members for the Caffrey Inc.
Yep.
with the Cotton Pickers Monument
Right.
project that's underway. And I finally finished the PhD thing, so all
That's
that's
great.
going to come out the gate. But more about that some other time. But what you do in addition to sitting on nonprofit boards is you are an entrepreneur yourself with a business in Baptisttown, several businesses, and you own several sites
Right.
there.
Mhm.
And then you also have a tour company. And I want to unpack that and just take maybe one at a time. Now,
Yeah.
you as a businessman, both on the profit side and the nonprofit side, but tell us about first your convenience store, and
Okay.
then your museum that you have
Okay.
on the street.
I got a convenience store,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how this happened. It wasn't planned. I bought the store that Robert Johnson would go in to buy his Prince Albert tobacco.
Oh, is that the location?
That's the location that Robert Johnson would go in to buy his Prince Albert tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Truett wouldn't give Robert Johnson his Prince Albert tobacco in his hand. He would give it to him in a brown paper bag. And that's what Robert Johnson would write his songs on, those bags that Mr. Truett would give him. Because Mr. Truett didn't want to touch his hand because this guy was a black guy.
So Mr. Truett was a white guy?
Mr. Truett was a white guy.
Also, blacks were the untouchables.
Right, black. He was a black guy, and plus he played the devil's music. He was double bad.
Oh, Lord.
Yep, and Mr. Truett wouldn't touch his hand, so he would give it to him in a brown paper bag, and that's what he would write his songs on. And my tour business, it just came up some kind of way because I was in the store one day, and a guy came to the store. He said, "I want to show me where Robert Johnson played his music." And I knew that Robert Johnson played his music right across the street, and he wanted to know where Robert Johnson was buried at. And I showed him where Robert Johnson was buried at, and then people just start coming wanting to
So
do
by word of mouth, it kind of spread.
right, kind of spread a little bit. So I said I was going to start doing tours, showing people where Robert Johnson played at and where he's buried at. And now I see people from all over. They come, and we take them to the store that Robert Johnson bought his Prince Albert tobacco. We would take them to the back in the days museum that we have over there to show people the artifacts that people use for their everyday life. And we would take them to all three grave sites. Robert Johnson's a real popular guy. This guy buried in 3 different places. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
That is.
Now, do you know for sure which one is the real one?
Yeah, we know for sure because Miss Rosa Estridge, she was one of the members of Live Zion Church, and she was one of the ones at the burial of Robert Johnson. Her husband, Tom Estridge, dug the grave for Robert Johnson. She said Mr. Wade came to her house and told her husband, Tom Estridge, go to the barn and get a sharpshooter. That's a 4x8 wooden box, and go up to the church and dig a hole and put this old dead blues guy in it in Touch Hog's house. They didn't want to call his name because he was a blues guy. And I grew up that way. My daddy knew Robert Johnson because he would make moonshine whiskey and take it to the juke joint. And he always would tell me, said, we got a famous blues guy buried here. But they never would call his name.
So why is that? I mean, I've never heard it quite as severe as what you're describing. That they didn't even want to call a blues musician's name just because he sang the blues.
Because he sings the blues, they thought it was devil's music.
And so therefore he translated into him being a devil too?
Right,
or?
That's translated. They didn't want no part of him. So he was connected with the devil in his music, so they didn't want no part of this guy.
That's
because he was really, you know, he was bad to them. You know.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, where'd they get that from?
Well, I mean, that's just the way it is.
I know.
I mean, because, you know, Robert Johnson, you know, if you black, 99.9% of the time you start playing your music in the Baptist church. And when you leave out the Baptist church and go to the juke joint and start playing your music, you automatically sold your soul to the devil. And see, they do that, and that's where they always start in the Baptist church playing their music. But they would eventually go to the juke joint because they could make money at the juke joint. Wasn't nobody making money at the Baptist church but the preacher. And so they would take their music to the juke joint and start playing it. And
the only difference between the spirituals and the blues are just the lyrics, right?
Just the lyrics.
Pretty much.
Because the same music they sang on Saturday, they sang it on Sunday.
That's right.
On Saturday, they would have Baby and Honey in their music. And on Sunday, they come to the church, they'll take that out and put Jesus and God. Identical same music, same people playing it, same people singing it. It's the identical same music. They just change those two lyrics in their music.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way they do it, you know.
Yeah, I think a real serious scholarly study needs to be conducted around the science of spirituals and gospel, and to show, you know, the similarity, and to just displace and dispel that notion that blues was bad or negative, or, you know. But that,
see, it's very similar because, you know, gospel, you know, you sing to God, you want to, you know, when you leave here, you want to go to heaven and all that. And blues, you sing the way you feel. I'm singing the way I feel right here on earth.
And,
you know, I'm telling a story about myself, like Robert Johnson, Honey Boy Edward. Robert Johnson didn't think I'm going to sing hellhounds on my heel. He felt hellhounds on my heel. He sang the way he felt. If they had a good day at work, they'll come back home and say, it was a great day. We hope tomorrow be a better day. They all lived on hope, but they didn't have any right. If they had a bad day at work, they said, man, it was a bad day. We hope tomorrow be a good day. They lived it on hope because they didn't have any rights whatsoever. They just always hoped the next day was going to be a better day for them. And that's why all of them would go to the crossroad and pray. They said Robert Johnson sold his soul at the crossroad, but in reality, he was trying to get to Memphis. He'd go to the crossroad, he'd fall down on his knees, and he'd pray, he'd ask God, forgive him for singing the blues and show him a way to go. But the guys in the trucks, the white guys in the truck would just pass through and just blow dust all over like they don't even see him. But every now and then a good old boy would come by. He would stop and say, where you going, boy? He said, I'm going north. They said, get on the back of the truck. They take them to Highway 61 and say, you go that way. And see, when they get to Memphis, they feel like they're free. They feel like they're free peoples. And they couldn't buy a ticket to go to Memphis because everybody owed the boss man. It wasn't slavery, but it was slavery.
It was It was a system going from no pay to a system of very, very low pay, which is an extension of slavery. So the difference in my mind between the spirituals is like you praying and singing to go home to Jesus, and in the blues you praying and hoping to go home with some woman.
Right. You want some happiness right now. You don't want to wait till you die to get it.
So we're going to take a break and come on back and talk a little bit more about the festival that's coming up.
Yeah, let's talk about the festival.
Yeah. All right, so we'll be right back. Sylvester. Welcome back. I'm in the studio with Sylvester Hoover, and we just left off talking about Robert Johnson, devil's music, spirituals, God's music, and I mean, on and on. But it's all our music, and I love it, every bit of it. And I'm just happy that you're one of those who are truly working to embrace it and to show authority in your knowledge and agency, which is just to say that you know this story and you're promoting this story and interpreting it in a very authentic way. And what's the name of your company? The blues, or the travel company, the tour
Delta
company.
Blues Legend Tour. If anybody want a tour, just go on the internet and punch in Delta Blues Legend Tour, and my face will pop up. And then you can get in contact me, and I'll give you a tour of the Mississippi Delta.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we'll give you a tour of the Mississippi Delta.
No limitations, just throughout the Delta.
Throughout the Delta.
So when they come, what's an example of a tour that they would be on?
The tour will last 3.5 hours, and we'll go to a lot of these sacred blues sites that you wouldn't see anywhere else. You have to come through me to see these sacred sites that we do. And The Help was filmed down my blues tour, the movie The Help. And you would see a lot of shotgun houses. You'll see what Robert Johnson played. You'll see what Honey Boy Edward played. You'll see houses that these guys hid out in. And you'll see some of the things they would use for their everyday life. And what we call it, we follow Robert Johnson's footsteps from the last place he lived to his grave site. And we'll end up at Bryant's Grocery, where Emmett Till whistled at Carolyn Bryant. And that's kind of the start of civil rights movement. Even before Dr. Martin Luther King, it was Emmett Till, and that had a big part of the civil rights movement. And that's why Dr. King was here so much, because he had so much trouble in the Mississippi Delta. Mississippi Delta was a different animal. It was different than any place in the world.
It's the most southern place on earth is what James Cobbs calls it.
And that's what the blues guys thought. They thought this was the worst place on earth, the Mississippi Delta.
Yeah.
But out of all bad places, you get good music, and that's where the good blues music came from.
I mean, beautiful, like I say, and healing, soothing music that allowed us to get through and push through and just make it through to another day. But in your museum, what are some of the things that you're working to preserve?
Well, I'm just working to preserve some of the artifacts they would use for their everyday life. Like, we got iron beds, we got wood stove, we got cross-cut saw, we got cotton sacks in there that people would pick cottons in. And I got this cotton sack, maybe 10 years ago, and I checked it to make sure my family initial wasn't in it, because everybody initialed the cotton sack.
Oh, really?
They would put their initial in the cotton sack. Whoever picked cotton in that sack, they would put their initial in it.
Oh.
But luckily, my family initially wasn't in that cotton sack. So
somebody else.
That was somebody I didn't know. Yeah. So that made me felt